Morning, sports fans. This is George with Custom Tied Flies and Guide Service. And today we're going to be tying a CT's version of EP's uh, Giant Trevally Tan Brushy. So the hook is a Gamakatsu SL12S in a 6/0. Thread is Danville Flymaster 210 denier in tan for the first section and thin mono for the second section. The tail is SF Flash Blend in Redfish, and then EP's 3D Minnow fibers in white and tan, and then the EP Sparkle in crystal blue. And then there's some Hedron Flashaboo in pearl. And the body is EP Sparkle Gold. And then EP Craftfur brush in a 2.5-inch tan. And the EP Streamer brush in a 2.5-inch tan. And the eyes are 10mm yellow 3D sticker eyes. So this is what the fly looks like when it's done. And I tie these in sections. So mount your hook. Let's see if we can get that a little more centered. You're going to tie in about midway up the shank. See, that happens to everybody. And you're going to take it down to the top of the bend. And you got your SF Flash Blend in Redfish. And you're just going to get a little clump about a little bigger than the hook shank. And you're going to take that in half. And this is for support. And it gives you a little flash and a little wiggle. You're going to put that right on top of the shank. And then the second piece, pull the fibers out on either end. Find the middle. You're going to make sure you pull these down a little bit. Put one wrap between them. Then your crystal blue EP Sparkle. Sometimes you get knots and rats at the end of that. So you just pull that off. You don't really need a lot of this, but enough for you to be able to see it. There we go. Okay, and next is the white EP Minnow fibers. You want to be able to see through this little clump. Now the fly is supposed to be 6.5 inches long. So I have a mark about halfway up this knurl here that you can barely see. Let me see if I can fix that a little bit. So on this particular vise, it's a Griffin mongoose, about halfway up this knurl. Is my 6-inch mark. And then I measure that against the ruler I have here on my desk. And it should come out at about 4 inches, 3 3/4 inches, something like that. And you're going to want to put the little clump on first. You're not folding this, you're putting it on straight. And you do this because you're establishing the taper of the fly. There we go. So now I got my length established, and I just made a mistake. See, again, it happens to everyone, and there's a lot of guys out there when they do tutorials, it looks like they're just, perfect super duper fly tires. And I think it's important for folks to see that, even the professional commercial guys make a mistake. And what's important is that you realize that you made the mistake before you get too far into the bug. So I had forgotten the flashy boo. And you want to put that on before you put the long portion of the EP3D Minnow fibers. So that way you kind of there's a layer there. You got this part, and then the flashy boo, and then this part. Excuse me. And then next is your tan. And this is going to be the opposite of putting on the white. You're going to put the long part on first. And then the short part. And you're going to pull those fibers out. So you're starting to get that bait fish profile going this way. Then you're going to put the gold on. You're going to pull that up. And trim it off about half the body length. Then you're going to take another piece of EP to cover that up. And then last but not least is your rattle. I'm going to put some head cement on there. I'll make those wraps behind the rattle to support it. And keep it where it's supposed to be. And that is the end of the first section. Paint that with head cement. Now it's important that you use a lacquer-based head cement. You don't want to use UV resin for this. UV resin is very smooth once it cures, and the materials tend to slide around on it. So you don't want that. And just hang this over here in my drying rack. And now we're ready for the next phase. So we're going to start off with getting tied in with your mono. Let me get a sip of coffee here. Okay. Now, the first thing you need to do here is you're going to take you a little piece of your tan. And you're going to trim that piece into 2.5-inch sections. You're going to have 3 of those. Now comes the fun part. You don't want to get this right in the center. You want to get it a little to the left so that when you tie it in, it's even on both sides, because you're going to take this over and that's not even. And that is. Okay, and then you're going to lift up your rattle and you're going to run 2 wraps, and that pulls this part of the belly back behind the bend of this hook. Excuse me. Now you're going to take take that in half. That goes over the top of the rattle. Then your next piece of 2.5-inch tan. And line that up with the last piece. That's too long. All right, that's good. Pull those middles out. Get you a good taper going. Just kind of spread those fibers out across the top of the rattle. That hides the rattle pretty well. Then you got your last piece. That's too long. All right. Now you're ready for your brushes. You got your EP streamer brush, and you got your EP Craftfur brush. So, all right, so I've unpacked them and I got my EP streamer brush, which is 2.5 inches wide, and I got my EP Craftfur brush, which is 3 inches wide. I know I said 2.5 inch when I said the recipe, but I'll fix that when I put it over in the description. Now I trim that wire off because it gets in the way. I'm going to put some head cement on here. And I got my EP streamer brush. It's going to go on first. Then you're going to take that up to about 3/4 up the shank. Just like with the other brushy flies. You're going to crimp those fibers back. And try not to run into the camera while you're wrapping them. You just keep stroking the fibers back as you go. You don't want them to be touching wraps. You want them about 1/8 of an inch apart or so. You're going to get some captures, but don't fret. You're going to pull those out with a wire brush here in a minute. Old pair of scissors. Trim that wire over. And you're going to have that little piece of wire sticking up, so just fold that over with your fingers. Brush those fibers back. And you got your Craftfur brush. And you see how the Craftfur brush is made with the hairs going one way. They're all going down. That's how you want them. Just trim that piece of wire off, that long piece of wire right there. Just trim that off, leaving about 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch sticking out, so you got something to tie down with. Some head cement. Bring your thread forward. Bring it back. Stroke those fibers back and up. Start to wrap. Keep stroking the fibers back and up as you wrap. As they're so long, you're going to capture them while you're holding the brush. But again, you're going to brush this out with a wire brush once it's done, so don't fret. Right. Put your wire brush to it. You see how those long fibers just lay back along the center axis of the fly. That's what you're looking for. Got some captures there. Don't. Well, that happens too. There we go. Finish this off with a 5 3 whip finish. I'm going to take a tan Sharpie and color in the head. Paint that with some UV resin. Give that a couple seconds to get down in between the wraps of mono. All right. Now we're ready to comb this out. Just lay it on my leg. Try not to get the hook stuck on my pants or my leg. Big ass 6/0 hook with a giant barb on it. Now comes the eyeball part. You got your scissors. I use barber scissors. And you're looking for stuff that doesn't meet the profile. All right, bottom looks good. That's a little wrong. This doesn't really meet the profile right here. So you're just gonna kind of ramp that up. Ow. Oh, it's better. Now we're gonna check the length. Should be 6.5 inches. This is more like 7, so we're gonna take a little length off the tail section. Try to give that a nice little point. Get a little more length off the tail section. There we go. And remount that, and now we're ready for eyes. So now you're ready for eyes. You got your head all brushed back and your body's all trimmed and everything. So you're just going to fan these fibers up and then stroke them back a little bit. You're trying to find where the rattle and the shank come together because that's where your eye's going to go. And the reason you fan the fibers up is because you're trying to flatten the head out. So I use Zap Goo, but you can use model cement. Of course, I didn't really discover that you could use model cement until after I had bought like 5 tubes of Zap Goo. So once I run out of Zap Goo, I'll use model cement. The eyes come on a sheet, so just you don't have to trim off how many eyes you're going to use, but I find it easier to keep up with them if I do that. There's my first eye going on. You want to be careful that you don't get your fingers in the Zap Goo because it'll muck stuff up for later. And you just put some gentle pressure on there for about 20 seconds or so. You're trying to push that Zap Goo down through the fibers and onto the mounting base underneath. And then I have a little squeeze bottle for UV resin. Start at the front. We got that little bit of Zap Goo there. I'm just going to take a bodkin and kind of try to get that off of there. Get it flattened down. My little bit of Zap Goo or UV resin. Start up at the front and just you want to get some on the eye and some on the Craftfur brush. Trying to seal the eye to the Craftfur brush. Then I got my little tool here. Push down on the eye gently and hit it with the light. And I take my UV resin with the brush. Start at the front. And you're trying to seal that eye smooth. Because if you don't seal it smooth and you even have a little edge sticking up, when you're stripping this, the eye's going to come off. Then you're going to have a Cyclops fly, pirate fly. Maybe he'll need an eye patch. And the same thing here. Start at the front. Get some on the eye and some on the Craftfur brush. Push down with my little tool. And then paint the eyes shut. It takes about 10 or 15 seconds for this to cure. And there we go. All right, and then we take that out of the vise. Kind of stroke those fibers back and see what's sticking out past the eye. It don't look like anything sticking out past the eye. All right, there you have it. There's your front profile. There's your side profile. Yeah, maybe that is there a little bit. It's a little better. There's your side. There's your other side. Here we go. Custom Tides Giant Trevally Tan EP Brushy in a 6/0. So this is George with Custom Tide Flies and Guide Service. You can find this and other flies tutorials on this YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe. And you can also find them on my website. My showcase website is www.custom-tied.com. That's custom-tied.com. Have a splash. Don't forget the dash. Happy tying.